I have two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may.
Hi, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone and you're watching The Daily Question. Today's question of the day: can females be fathers? Now, the reason I'm asking that question is because of the following article which appeared in the New Zealand media last week. Pregnant Kiwi dad-to-be getting ready to welcome first child around Christmas. Now, I'm sure you can imagine what's going on here, but let me read to you from the first couple of paragraphs of this article so you know exactly what this incident entails. And by the way, I'm not going to play the pronoun game. This particular young lady asked the journalist who wrote this article to refer to her as they or them or their. That's an absurdity. She's an individual and it just makes no sense at all to be referring to her in that way. It just confuses what's actually going on. So let me translate what's actually written in this article. When Scout Barbara Evans gets asked if she is expecting a boy or a girl, she has the stock answer ready. I hope it's human. Another common question is, who's the dad? To which the single by choice Otago Polytech student and volunteer responds, it's me. My child will call me Papa. Barbara Evans used a sperm donor as she desperately wanted to have a child and felt it was the right time with her degree reaching completion next year and her jobs and classes being family friendly. You can see what's going on here. I'm sure you understand the situation. Now, initially I wasn't going to make a video about this story, despite the fact that it's attracted a lot of media and social media attention. And the reason I wasn't going to make a video is because I can only imagine how difficult it must be to be dealing with a very serious bodily dysphoria like this, to be experiencing gender dysphoria where you are living in your body with a psychological confusion and this mistaken belief that your body is not the real body, that you have been misgendered, that you have been given the wrong body or born into the wrong body. It must be extremely difficult to deal with such a serious level of psychological confusion. And the last thing that I would imagine anyone in that situation would want would be to have someone like me adding to that by creating a video which potentially opens up the possibility of ridicule or mockery or insult or anything uncharitable like that. However, I changed my mind about making this video when I thought a bit more about it, and I realized there are two really big issues here that go beyond just this particular lady and the issues that she might be dealing with. First of all, this is an issue now that is regularly being reported upon by the media, certainly in my country, not just with a very unquestioning and uncritical style of reporting, but effectively an agenda is now being pushed. There is no proper examination of what is going on here. There is no serious questioning about the harm that will result in the lives of vulnerable people if you try and push an agenda and you celebrate this sort of gender confusion, this identity confusion, this gender dysphoria, this bodily dysphoria, and you report it in such a way as to celebrate it and to suggest that anybody who raises legitimate and very charitably raises legitimate questions about what is going on here and the implications of this is somehow a bigot. That's absurd. We would not report on other bodily dysphorias in this way. So, for example, anorexia. We do not cover anorexia in the way that people who experience gender dysphoria and that particular type of bodily dysphoria, that is not covered in the same way at all. Why would we make that distinction here? Now, obviously, there is identity politics involved, there is sexual identity politics involved, and that has definitely clouded this issue, and that drives a particular agenda. But there is a reality here as well that goes beyond the adults who might embrace those sorts of ideas. There are the younger people and the more vulnerable members of our community who could be easily persuaded into embracing these ideas, and these ideas have some very serious, some very real and very dangerous consequences at their end if they are followed through on. First of all, there is the fact that you could see a person end up in a situation where they live either a life or a good portion of their life where they are just stuck in a state of psychological confusion and they are not actually receiving any of the help and support that they should be receiving under normal circumstances, because instead we've decided to embrace this alternate reality. The other possibility, of course, is that you can have a person who follows through on this and decides to undergo a surgical option where they have a surgeon completely change their physical appearance in an irreversible way so that their body now mimics the body of the opposite sex because they have the psychological confusion about their biological sex. That's an irreversible and extreme situation, but it's something that this unquestioning promotion of this particular ideology could result in, and that's not a good thing. On top of that, there are a lot of young people who are affected by this issue in what we would call a social contagion type way. They are influenced by the way society and by their peers and by the way the people around them and the adults that are supposed to be the trusted and reliable voice of wisdom are talking about and talking to them about these issues. And if they don't talk to them about these issues in a sane and rational way, there's a real potential for harm in the lives of those young people. And so this agenda-driven, unquestioning reporting, I would argue, is extremely irresponsible and it's extremely dangerous because ultimately we are talking about a bodily dysphoria here, a serious psychological and identity confusion which has very, very serious ramifications in the lives of the people who are experiencing it. Secondly, is the unquestioning idea that is loaded into this whole ideology that fatherhood is nothing more than an arbitrary psychological state and that anybody who wants to can be a father simply by believing that they are a father, but that is not even remotely close to how fatherhood actually is. Authentic fatherhood is not simply an arbitrary psychological belief. Even for males, it's not this way. It's not simply a matter of saying, well, I believe I'm a dad. That's not what actually makes you a dad. In fact, to be a good dad, there has to be an investment of self-giving love, genuine, tangible, concrete, objective action, the act of self-giving love and the nurture of a child. And that's what the relationship and the bond of fatherhood and the action of fatherhood is actually all about. It's not simply saying, well, I'm a dad or I'm a good dad. It's more than that. Secondly, fatherhood does not exist without masculinity, and masculinity is built on what? The biological reality of biological sex and sexual difference between males and females. Males and females are not the same. They are unique. They bring different and complementary gifts, strengths, and also weaknesses to the world. And fatherhood is one mix of parenting. The other one, of course, is motherhood. And the two of them bring a complementary giftedness into the lives of those children who are raised in a stable, loving home where a mother and a father are present. And this is really important because we know this is the best, the most optimal way of raising a human being for their own flourishing and for their own well-being, to actually have mother and father engaged in that act of self-giving love and nurturing care for that child. To suggest, like for example in my own family situation, that my wife could just shack up with another woman and that woman, if she wanted to, could call herself the father of my children is an absurdity. Now, beyond just the biological reality, even the idea that she could call herself the adopted father of my children is an absurdity. She can't, because she can't be father to my children because she's not a man. Masculinity underpins the gift of fatherhood. Without the presence of masculinity, which is an objective and real thing, you can't have fatherhood. Now, this particular idea is an outworking of a very serious anthropological confusion that exists now in some quarters of the West, and this anthropological confusion promotes the completely false idea that masculinity and femininity are not objective realities, that they're nothing more than social constructs, and that to be male or female is nothing more than a psychological belief. It's not true, and to embrace that idea is not just not good, it's actually very dangerous. It's very dangerous for the vulnerable people who could follow through on some very real and very harmful consequences as a result of that idea. It is not good in the lives of young people who actually depend on us older people to be wise, not to be clever idiots who embrace clever stupidity like these sorts of ideologies. They rely on us to be the wise heads in the room who are actually willing to step up and to do what wise heads are supposed to do, which is not just promote wisdom, but to live and to instill wisdom into their lives. Thirdly, this is not helpful for the people who experience this gender identity confusion, the people who experience this bodily dysphoria where they believe that their own body is not actually the right body. The last thing they need is to have people out there trying to normalize and to celebrate that confusion and then telling them that they should live in that state of confusion and somehow they are going to find human flourishing and fulfillment by living in a state of anthropological bodily confusion. That's not actually going to happen. And lastly, of course, there's a problem about what this ideology says to us as a society about the importance of motherhood and fatherhood. Effectively, it reduces the importance of motherhood and fatherhood to nil. They're nothing more than social constructs. They're arbitrary ideas. Anyone can be a father, then effectively no one needs to be a father. If anyone can be a mother, then effectively no one needs to be a mother. But of course, that's not true. And any sane, rational person knows that's not true, and it's not good for human flourishing to embrace such a distorted view of the human person. As per usual, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please let me know what you think in the comments section below. And if you like the content I'm creating and you'd like to see more of it, then please support me on PayPal or Patreon. There is a link for both in the video description below. That's right, I can hear my theme music too. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily Question.